Since the whole craft and field of retouching is so diverse and broad, to say I'm a retoucher doesn't really give much specific information about where an individual retoucher is in the broad landscape of possibilities of retouching. So what we've done is taken what we see as 5 distinct personas, positions in the industry that directly relate to skill and experience. That's going to help you identify where you are authentically so that you are not presenting yourself as more experienced than you actually are. You can identify where you are in this hierarchy of retouching personas, so then you can figure out where you'd like to go. You might look at all of these personas and go, well, I don't fit like perfectly into any one of these, but just don't worry about that. It doesn't need to be the perfect fit. These are just general targets for you to look at and go, well, I'm mostly like this one. And that's just going to help you figure out where you are in the industry, and maybe I could achieve a different one in the future if I want to work toward that. So let's take a look at the personas that we created. This one's called Principal. So the principal is a business owner. This is a person who often had clients before they achieved this persona. So they're dealing with maintaining their clients, keeping them happy, doing the level of PR and FaceTime that it takes to do that. The principal is running their own schedules, and they're developing their own budgets, they're doing bidding, everything that it takes to initiate and complete a retouching project. This person really has a solid understanding of the industry as a whole. So rather than focusing on the retouching, they're focusing on the day-to-day operations of the business and bringing work in and delegating and managing projects from a higher level. This person also has the personality type that fits this role. They're a good leader, good communicator. They have a desire to be at the helm of the ship. And these are generally ambitious people who want to achieve those higher revenues that a studio can achieve. So this is an ambitious position where the returns are going to be much higher, but also the commitment is going to be much greater. The next persona we define is called staffer. So this is a person who actually gets hired on as an employee at an agency or studio or other company. This is a good, stable position to achieve because it's an employee. It's not a part-time contractor. So they're going to get paid a regular salary, also probably benefits, healthcare, all the stuff that comes along with being an employee. This person isn't worrying about business operations. They don't have to maintain clients because the company is doing that for them. This person is not worried about what they can and can't do with the software or the tools. They're higher level than that. They're an expert in Photoshop. What they're going to be concerned with is managing a project from end to end and finding workflow efficiencies and hitting deadlines. Traditionally, staff positions have been on-site. Companies usually want their employees coming in every day, 9 to 5. But as we see technology improve and change, we're going to see a lot more opportunities for staffers to be working from home. The next persona is probably the most common. It's the freelancer. The freelancer is booking with a lot of different clients, working at a lot of different studios, and they enjoy a ton of flexibility with their lifestyle. They can also choose their work hours a lot of times if they're working off-site, but the freelancer is generally asked to come on-site to work in studios, but they also need to be good communicators so that they can work with teams and hit the ground running. Freelancer is a great transitional persona for the staffer because a freelancer is going around town, meeting a lot of different people, getting booked at a bunch of different shops. Generally through that, they're getting offers for staff positions because they're getting in front of a ton of people. And those people who make hiring decisions can really see what a freelancer's skill set is and personality type is if they're right in front of them in their studio and they're not just reviewing somebody's resume and work samples. The freelancer's skill set in Photoshop and retouching can vary quite a lot. They need to be pretty good, but a freelancer is essentially making their own reputation in their industry, in their local market, about what they're really good at. What you can make as a freelancer really varies depending on your local market. You could be getting paid hourly, a day rate, a per image rate. So the freelancer has to know how to navigate all of those payment options. And they also have to know that lots of times as a contractor, those checks don't come back to the freelancer until 15, 30, 45, even sometimes 60 to 90 days. So the freelancer's got to account for those delays in getting paid. So although there's a lot of instability in working like this, there's also a ton of freedom and flexibility. So it also takes the right personality type to really enjoy working as the freelance persona. The next persona is called a production artist. So this is a person who entered the field usually through graphic design. They're usually executing the production tasks in the studio. So this could be like a magazine or a newspaper or even like a web publication. But they're usually doing like page layout, placing logos, cleaning up photos for the magazine. So they're using the tools of InDesign and Illustrator, but also a lot of Photoshop. The production artist often does not identify as a retoucher, but the reason that we included it here in our personas is that it's a really, really common transitional position into becoming a pure retoucher. When you understand that you're a production artist and that this is an avenue into retouching, you can really start to focus on being the go-to Photoshop person in your studio in order to get there. Also, if you're coming into the industry, you should know that taking a job as a graphic designer, if that's your background, is also a viable path into retouching. The level of Photoshop and retouching skills that a production artist needs could really vary. And this is important to understand because you could come into the production artist position with a pretty good foundation in Photoshop and retouching, and they might hire you for that. But you could also come in with a fairly strong background using InDesign or Illustrator, and they'll hire you for those skills while your Photoshop skills are low, but you have the opportunity to build those Photoshop skills in the position. The next persona is junior. So this is the entry-level position into retouching. There are a lot of photography students that come out of college and they jump into a retouching studio as a junior because there's work out there for junior retouchers, whereas starting your own photography business takes a ton of work and resources. So juniors generally do the prep work for the more senior retouchers in a studio. They are needing a foundational understanding of Photoshop and retouching. So image prep, clipping, masking. If you're really good at that, you're going to be a really desirable junior because there are tons of studios looking for help at that level. You don't get paid a ton, but what you do get is mentorship from experienced retouchers, and there's no price you can put on that. So if you're a junior, you're going to come into a studio and somebody's going to tell you exactly what to do. They're going to want you to have that foundation, but they're going to show you how to use it on their projects. So they're going to be watching tutorials and looking at the files of the older, more senior artists during those times to learn. So there's great opportunity for education as a junior. This could be purely an intern position. Juniors can also make decent hourly rates depending on what they're working on and how valuable they end up becoming to the seniors and mid-level artists who are using them for image prep. What you should focus on in order to get a junior level position is high quality commercial level retouching instruction. So you walk into a studio or a job interview, being able to show that you actually know what that studio is going to need rather than random YouTube tricks and techniques. Once you're in the junior position, you've really got to focus on getting mentored, on learning. That's the real value in being a junior, because you're going to learn what those guys actually do, which is often specific to studios and is not taught anywhere else. And that's how you're going to start your career in retouching. So hopefully this gives you a good overview of all the career paths in retouching. What we did is try to give you the bullet point overviews of each of the types so you know where to start and you know where to go.